So, esteemed colleagues in the teaching profession, here are a few of us doing excellent things. My first guest on stage is a teacher right here in Amsterdam. He's in the classroom, and he was just loving his experience with his students. He just loved to hear what his students would say in the classroom, some of the unbelievable things they'd say in the classroom, and he started recording them on his own blog. His real name is Bart Ongering, but now the Netherlands knows him as Meester Bart. Please help me welcome on stage Meester Bart.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Mister, I didn't bring my book. What are you going to read then? She said, I'm going to read my mind. Why are you late? Mister, I still had to wear in my shoes. How come you're so energetic? Well, as Lady Gaga once said, I was born this way. These are some of the quotes I've been collecting over the past few years. As a teacher in Amsterdam, I hear the dearest, darnest, most beautiful, most honest things during my classes. I started to collect these quotes I hear and started to post them on Facebook. My friends and family told me I should make a blog on which I would share the wonderful things I hear. And I did. About a year ago, I created a Tumblr and linked it to a Facebook page. More and more people started to like the things I hear in and around my classes. And it was about a month after the launch of my blog that a publisher in Amsterdam called me and asked me how I felt about publishing a book. I had never expected such an enthusiastic response of the online world. I kept sharing the things I hear in and around my classes, and I published my book last April. My name's Meester Bart, for the English-speaking people, Mr. Bart, and I've been asked to talk at TEDx Amsterdam and share my vision of what I find special about educating adolescents. I'm going to share 4 of many experiences which I've had over the past few years. It was a few months ago that one of my students came on to me crying just before the first class of that day. I asked her what was wrong. Obviously, she was in terrible pain. She told me that one of the brackets in the braces got loose. I knew that hurt. I asked her, why haven't you called the orthodontist? She said, I did. I tried to make an appointment, but it didn't make time for me. The class bell rang, and I decided to let my students in anyway, but I knew that I had to help this poor student. I called her orthodontist and told him that I would send the girl there immediately. And I did. A day later, the student came to me and gave me a note in which he said thanks for the help. And for me, it was just normal offering a bit of help. Because life is not always easy. It's not for adults, and it isn't for adolescents. But adolescents do need our expertise when it comes to unexpected situations like these. On a cold day in January last year, it was snowing so bad that I couldn't cycle to school. I went by public transport, which I never do. Due to the weather, I had a 30-minute delay, and I knew that I wasn't going to be on time for the first class of that day. I called my colleague and asked if she could let my students in, and told them I was on my way. And she did. When I was walking the last bits to school, I was soaked and terribly cold. I hurried my way through the school building, and I was wondering, would my students still be there waiting for me? Because the class had started about 30 minutes before. And I breathed a sigh of relief when I saw my students were still there waiting for me. I entered the classroom with my coat covered in snow and told them I was sorry for being late. They told me they didn't mind waiting for me. They said, take it easy, take off your coat, relax a bit, get a big mug of tea for yourself, and come back whenever you're ready. And I did. I entered the classroom again with a big mug of tea holding in my hand, and I started the remaining 30 minutes of my class. It was later that I realized that teaching is about giving, but sometimes adolescents are ready to give a little bit back. A few years ago, I got an email from one of my students in 4th grade telling me something was going on at home and that she wouldn't be at school a lot. I replied and asked her what was wrong, and she replied back telling me she would say it at school. A few days later, I saw her at school and we sat down in the school canteen. She said, "Mister, I hope you're not mad at me. My boyfriend and I made a little mistake. I'm pregnant." I told her that I wasn't angry with her. Why would I? I asked her how she was doing and had she decided about keeping the baby, yes or no, already. She told me that she wanted to keep the baby. I advised her to tell her classmates as soon as possible, because soon her body would start to change. Only a few weeks later, she showed me and her class the first sonogram of the fetus. And it was about that summer holiday when we got an email as our teachers saying that she gave life to her son, with photos of the newborn attached to her email. It was then that I realized that I hadn't felt disappointed in her or whatsoever. All I did was trying to support her in what she had been going through. A few years ago, I think it was my second or maybe the first year of my school working as a teacher. My students were doing their exercises when I saw a 14-year-old girl crying. I sat down next to her and asked her what was going on. She told me that I wouldn't understand anyway. But I couldn't let the girl crying there, so I kept on asking what was going on, and I decided to get out of the classroom with her. We sat down at the table, and it was, I think, the first time that I let my class work with me not being there. But I trusted them because I had to help her. I had to do something. So I asked her again, what was really going on? And she said, "Well, as I told you, you wouldn't understand anyway. People always tell me they understand, but they don't know. They don't know what it's like to lose their mother." She told me that she lost her mother when she was 6 years old. And today, it was 7 years ago that her mother had died. Then I realized something. I thought maybe I have to tell me a bit of myself. So I told her, what if I would tell you that my mother died when I was 14? And there was not a teacher when I was in school who asked me how I was doing. She opened her eyes, and then she told me the whole story. And before I knew, the class bell rang, and we had been talking for about 45 minutes. So now I know that students in my class, they make jokes, they say the dearest, funniest, most honest things. But in the meantime, a class full of students, each of the 28 students in the classroom have their own story to tell. And I think that teachers should be ready to hear what they have to tell us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to keep him. I want to keep Meester Bart up on stage for a couple minutes here, just because I'm listening to you and tell your stories, and I'm hearing some of the stories from my own students about what happened to them in a personal way, and your compassion is admirable. I mean, it's really. Yeah, it's inspiring to hear how you
Thank you.
connect with your students. Yeah, where is this compassion coming from? Is this something you were taught? Is this something that just comes out of you naturally? Where does this come from?
I think it does come naturally because it's not what you get to study when you study to be a teacher.
Yeah, they don't teach. They
They
don't really
teach
teach
that.
compassion.
Yeah. I think they can't. But I do think that I rely on what I experienced when I was a teenager myself. And there were many examples of a teacher who I never want to be. But there were some teachers, those teachers were a bit of an example for me. So
Yeah.
I think that's the way. Yeah.
Yeah, I think all of us have had that one teacher, or hopefully more than just one, that made an impression on us at a young age, and that really helps.
Yeah.
Trust seems to be a huge part of your classroom. And your technique to, because all right, let's face it, there's some kids out there who we feel comfortable trusting, and then there's other kids out there where we're saying, I'm gonna trust you, but in the back of your mind you're thinking, oh man, how's this gonna turn out? How do you figure that out? How do you see your personality fitting in with each classroom? Because kids are different, every class is different, and what's your approach to that? How can you do that?
Well, I think that every student deserves to be trusted. When in my first year of that, when I started to work there, I put my iPhone on my desk and came back a few minutes later with holding a big mug of coffee in my hand or something. And I knew my iPhone would still be there. And I entered and I saw my iPhone still there. And one of the classmates, one of the students, he asked me, Mister, how could you do that? Do you trust her? Because we don't know many teachers who will have their iPhone still there. And I told him, why would I not trust you? If I hadn't I trusted you, then I wouldn't be working here as a teacher. So I think it's really important to trust every student you teach, because that is where it starts, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, and the kids feel that trust, and I think you get then your classroom is this place of trust, which is what I think all of us teachers want. We want to create an environment, a safe environment, an environment of trust where where we're not afraid to make mistakes, where nobody's afraid to put their hand up and ask, what they think the stupid question is, to be brave to do that. Because I guarantee you, there's 5 other kids in the classroom going, whoa, thank God they asked that question, because I was too scared to ask it. And to have a classroom where kids aren't afraid to do that that's a pretty special. It's a pretty special place.
Yeah, I think it's really important to I've been hearing this word many times today, to connect to the children, but I always start my class asking them how they're doing. And sometimes they ask, how are you doing? And that's when I feel really special hearing that.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a really, really special feeling.
Yeah.
Meester Bart, thank you so much for joining us on stage tonight.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.